So let me ask you, Roxana, where did you get this outstanding strength of character?
Well, if you look at where I come from, I'm from Iran, and it's been in the news lately. The women of Iran.
Yes,
I'm a
absolutely.
woman. I'm a Persian woman from Iran. I'm an Iranian woman with a lot of fortitude and a lot of strength. Most of it from my parents, who lost everything with the Iranian Revolution, with the Islamic Revolution. We were very, very lucky to live. So the resilience. It's another very, very important quality that leaders must have, because you will always have adversities. You will always have conflicts that you have to resolve, and that there will always be crisis that you will have to manage. And the way you manage all those things is by being resilient, hopeful, empathetic, committed, passionate, and working as a team. And so I've always known that, and that's always been in the fabric of how I have it's just part of me. It's a part of me that I know I got from my mother, I would say. Dad, sorry. I mean, he was pretty amazing too, but my mother was a very, very driven woman who taught me at a very young age that that our time on Earth, if you look at the whole history of Earth as scientists, is a really, 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 really spot of time. It's really, if you just think about it. And our gift to this earth, for all that it's given us, is to leave a legacy. Because when we come in with nothing, naked, and we leave with nothing. And so if you're committed to something that is outstanding and everlasting, it's something that you will always then be at least remembered for, but not that you should be remembered, but that you make it better for the next generation of people to come. So in her will, about 20 years before she died, she said, do something that would enlighten the next generation. That could be anything. Yeah. Give opportunities to those who have potential, but not the occasion, not the money, not the, you're born to a poor family, you're brilliant, you shouldn't live on the streets. So she was always thinking about that. And so I've obviously haven't at all achieved any of those things. But what I have done is always think about how can I make it better for the next group of women who should be entered in leadership positions to come in. And you could really up your game by separating yourself from the pack as women clinicians, as in diving into clinical research or any type of research, and really separate yourself and up your game.
Because I think women have this great ability to collaborate, and yes, that I think gives them such an advantage. That's what I'm telling the women here all the time. Work together and you can go so far. But I want to just go back, Roxana, because I understand you had a very easy time getting into medical school, straight in, no problem. Right? Tell us about that.
Yes. So I came to the United States I was 13 years old, and we came for a 1-month vacation to visit my then father's brother, who's now passed. For the very first time he had lived in the U.S. And his conversation with me in the kitchen one night was, look, I'm lonely here. I have no family here. My wife has brought me so much joy with her family, but I really miss my family. And what if he talked to me. He was very smart. He said, what if would you stay here? you could stay here and you can be educated here. And imagine all the opportunities when you go back to Iran. And I said, oh, opportunities. When I go back to Iran, I'll be able to speak English. I'd be an educated, American educated person, and I could really take over the world. And there is so much to do in Iran. And of course, my mom, who was always telling me to, everything is in your brain. Don't be attracted to materialism in the world. This is your bank. Put it in here. Nobody will take away your brain. All these things that I was taught, and it just everything started to click. And so he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I like it. I'll stay." I was 13.
Wow.
I had never met this uncle before.
And you couldn't speak English?
I couldn't speak a word of English. And then the next night, he tells my father, "Oh, the children want to stay here. Why don't you go and come back?" And it was his ploy to get his brother to move. My father worked in the previous government, and was an amazing person, did so much work in Iran, was the most honest person, and was a very, very highly decorated scholar in poetry, in political science, in you name it. And he had a very high government position, but he was also devoted to family. And he thought, well, this could be good. 6 months, the kids will be studying, and maybe we'll leave you. So they left us, myself and my sister, who was a year older than me. And then we were matriculated in a Catholic high school, local in Queens. And Queens is a suburb of New York. It has nothing to do with New York City. It's a different country.
Yeah.
Where Trump comes from.
Yes.
Okay, that's where he's from. And so I went to a school there, and I knew nothing about anything. And through that time in high school, applying to college, I just didn't even know. I saw something on my uncle's wall, New York University. That sounds like a good place. Let's apply there. And I got in there. And then came the time I wanted to go to medical school because my brother fell ill when my parents moved back the year later. And of course, then everything closed down. There was the revolution and all of that. My 11-year-old brother almost died, and I would be in the hospital with him every night. And I didn't understand why physicians couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. He ended up having a diagnosis of henoch-schönlein purpura. And it was a very difficult diagnosis in this young boy who was anemic and whatever. And with renal dysfunction, all of that. And they couldn't figure it out. And I just said, first of all, I felt really good in a hospital. And I said, I can do a better job figuring this out. How did they not put this puzzle together? What's wrong with these people? Why didn't they figure this out? And so I knew I was going to be a doctor because I like to solve problems. And then I applied to medical schools, and everything was shut down with Iran because there were hostage crises and things like that. And he said, you're never going to get into any medical school. I suggest you go to graduate school, which could have been a really good idea. And he thought, well, until everything gets better. And I said, well, that's not good enough, because what if it doesn't get better? It's 45 years later. It's still not gotten better.
No,
it's gotten worse.
It has
so
gotten
thank
worse.
goodness I didn't listen to him, and I listened to my heart and my gut. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm going to apply. I applied to 60 medical schools. 60. Not a single one even looked at my application or gave me an interview. Rejection after rejection after rejection. And I didn't know what to do. And he said, you see, I told you so. And I said, well, you know what? I'm still not going to give up, because there were several students at the time who had come up with this offshore medical school in Grenada, St. George's University. And then, of course, I applied, and I went there to the interview, and they said, well, why aren't you in an American school? They didn't know. I said, well, I don't have any. They said, well, since we're going to Grenada, you can go there, but you may not be able to come back to the U.S. Where are your papers? Are you ready to go and not come back? And I said, am I accepted? And he said, oh, of course you are. We want you. And so I was accepted. And then I told my parents I was going, and they said, well, how? How are you going to come back? We don't have any way to get you back. We're waiting for your green card. And once you turn, I was 20 years old. And I was young for my age, because they pushed me up a couple of grades. And I was still, that's why I keep saying keep on your goals. It was a hard way, right? I go to Grenada and there's an invasion. And I was in the Grenadian invasion, and all of that. So it was a very, very difficult. Nonetheless, I guess the whole story is that I am the most unlikely person to succeed.
Huh.
The most unlikely Iranian woman from during the hostage crisis of Iran, Muslim, coming to the United States, going to a Catholic school, a great college, but yeah, Grenada, they still look at me with sideways, But today, H-index of 170, over 2,000 publications and
citations
250,000. So
yes.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
When you are literally completely devoted to it. And also you're very lucky with amazing mentors and unbelievable opportunities and seizing the moment. And even when you have your imposter syndrome, overcoming it to say, I am here. This is my opportunity. I am going to embrace it and seize the moment. I'll just deal with the details later. I'll figure it out. And someone once told me, because I used to get really stressed out, like, how am I going to do all this? I said, well, you said that a month ago and you got through it. It's a month later. All those things you were talking about a month ago, right? So now I tell this to my daughter, who often says, Mom, I have this exam and that. And I said, well, a month ago, you had the same thing and you got through it, didn't you? You're here. You did great. So keep going. And I think it may be the tale of the tortoise that has a lot of problems and is going slow and steady with a very, very good, my trajectory was not so slow and steady because I can't stand slow and steady. I wanted to go fast. I wanted everything yesterday. But being bold and speaking up is often refreshing for many who don't expect it out of a woman, right?
At quite a personal cost to many women. Yeah. So I'm going to put
I have the personal costs too, of course.
And that's how many women give up because of that personal cost.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot.
Many. So the data shows that over 50% of the graduates of medical school now are women. So, and in the United States, you know how hard it is to get into a medical school? It's ridiculous. It's really, really hard because there are only very few positions, and the medical schools are attached to these healthcare systems. Healthcare systems don't want faculty and dealing with medical students and all of that. So they have a much smaller class, like 100-member class, not thousands like they do in university. So it's very, very, the funnel, it literally narrows down to a bottleneck that is unbelievably difficult to get in. Over 50% are women now, for the very first time. In internal medicine residency, about 48% are women. Cardiology, 19% to cardiology. Why? Because it's a male-dominated, high-earning, all of the biases that I talked about. Interventional cardiology, 6%. And the trajectory in terms of what's happened from over the time, there's been an increase in medicine, but in these subspecialties, it is flat as can be. And what we're seeing is that when you follow those women who went through all of that, they had to get into medical school, residency, fellowship, cardiology, and now interventional cardiology. After a few years, they give up. The practicing cardiologists are falling off, female cardiologists are falling off at a rate that you cannot imagine. So there is a huge need for this. And we haven't at all touched anywhere near the mental health of these women.